right, so December 8th, we'll get started. Go ahead and begin the starter if you've not done so already, please. Okay, here's the starter. It is taken directly from some of the questions that you were supposed to complete yesterday. So this will honestly help me understand if you did your work yesterday or not. Okay, so go ahead and begin. I like these questions where it's choose all that apply. You got to make sure, you got to know that content. Which of the following is true based on the Jim Crow video? And again, don't put any answers in the chat. But Jim Crow laws were in Germany. Jim Crow laws started around 1877. Jim Crow laws restricted voting rights of African Americans. Choose all of the ones that are true. Okay. And then question 2, which of the following is true based on the anti-Japanese Americans video, which is the second video yesterday that you were supposed to do for asynchronous time? Choose all that apply. 400,000 immigrated, kind of Japanese immigrated to Hawaii. Most Japanese worked in agriculture. Japanese were not allowed to own land, and Japanese were not allowed to become American citizens. Which of those is true? And then choose all of them that apply. So basically, if one of those is not true, don't click it. Okay. All right. Or if multiple are not true. All right. And then last question, number 3. Which of the following is true based on the Nuremberg Laws video? Jews were denied German citizenship. Racism became legal by the Nuremberg Laws. Nazi Germany boycotted Jewish stores, and Jews were targeted for the first concentration camps. All right. I'd like to know what y'all get. You can write it privately to me in the chat, because this is hard. I think this is hard. Okay, but I think you should use your notes to help you out with that. All right. Nonetheless, here we go. Work on that now. All right, so you should be done with the starter. Also, just a heads up, I have a handful of you that did not do the starter yesterday. That's a formal grade that you automatically received a 0 on if you did not submit it by 10 p.m. You can still do it, okay? You can still do it, but I have things set up in Canvas where once that deadline hits, it's automatically inputs a 0. So you need to make sure that you complete that, okay, and make sure that you get that done. Again, yesterday's starter was a formal grade, a formal 5-point grade on your ability to analyze Nazi propaganda, and we'll apply that same strategy to political cartoons as well. Okay, so you must do that. I would do that right when class ends today. Okay, right when class ends today. Just make sure that you do that, and then send me an email as well when you finish it. So it's just kind of a way for me to be reminded to grade that assignment for you. But that's a massive grade. That's our 3rd formal grade, okay, of the quarter. All right, with that being said, let's move on here. Okay, so the summary today we're going to identify and look at specific discriminatory laws. Yesterday was all about kind of understanding the background of Jim Crow, the Jim Crow era, Jim Crow laws, and then look at the way that Japanese immigrants and Japanese Americans were treated in the United States, and look at the way Jews were treated in Germany. Just kind of gave us a background based on the laws and how come these laws were legal and it was allowed and it made all of this treatment okay. We're going to look at some specific writing of laws today, okay, and that's our focus. So that's our objective. I can identify specific discriminatory laws. We're going to continue to understand the implications of global interactions. We're looking at Europe still. Ideology impacts interactions. So again, y'all, that relates here because these ideas and this idea that Black Americans are less than white Americans during the Jim Crow era in the South allowed for the white Americans in power to create these laws. It impacts their interactions and separates people based on race. Okay, so that's the ideology there. Okay, December 8th starter, which we did, 57 discriminatory law examples is what we're going to start today, and then you got to complete that for asynchronous work. And then before you leave, definitely we'll do the ticket out the door. Okay. Any questions so far? Go ahead and put them in the chat. Also go to page 57. I hope you have it now in your digital notebook. If not, maybe refresh it. Okay, go ahead and go there now, please. Everybody should be on 57. I believe it was distributed to everybody. I can check the status a little bit in a little bit, but take a look here. So here's bottom line. I don't want to. Does look a little confusing. So let me just clarify what we're doing here. Same as yesterday in the same order. This column here, this column here, the second column, is all about African American and Jim Crow laws in the United States. Okay. So that's what that is. And then just like the videos, right, it started with the Jim Crow era, then moved to the Japanese American video, and then the Jews in Nazi Germany video. So this is going in that same order. So all we're going to do is we're going to look at some specific laws that were literally created in during these specific times in these categories in these regions of the world. And we're going to look at how they specifically, what they said, okay? And we're going to kind of simplify them into these boxes, and we can work on some of this together. So bottom line is right now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to just simplify these laws into no more than a 5-word phrase, okay? Summarize them in less than 5 words, okay? So let's move forward here. So the goal of this lesson, again, we're looking at 3 different types of discrimination and discriminatory laws that targeted specific groups in history. Jews in Nazi Germany in the 1930s, African Americans in the Jim Crow era South, 1865 to 1970, Japanese Americans in the 1920s through the 1940s. Okay, the theme I want you to look at throughout this is how and why do governments marginalize, target, and discriminate against certain groups throughout history? How did they do it? Why did they do it? Okay. Let's continue here. Maybe what I'll do is make that half screen so we can see both of them maybe simultaneously. Okay. All right. And you may want to open up in Canvas a little bit larger so you can see that a little bit better. Okay. So you can look at it. Because one is that, can y'all read my slideshow? I'm guessing no at this point. I'll put it in the chat. Can y'all read that? Yeah, it's small for me, and it's probably even blurry for you. All right, so y'all go in Canvas so you can look at it too. Look at it for me, okay? I'll see what I can do to maybe make it a little bit better. All right, so here we go. That's a little bit better. That's a little bit better. Try one more time. So all I want you to do is I'm going to talk about each of these a little bit from this slideshow, and I want you to summarize each bullet point in less than 5 words. All right, so that's the bottom line. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so, and again, and here's going to be some terminology that is not appropriate to today. So I just want to just state that as well. But let's look at the Jim Crow laws. Racial classification. So first thing they need to do is identify who was black, identify who was Japanese, and identify who was a Jew. Okay, that's the first thing. That's racial classification. That's what we're looking at here. How did they classify it? So here we go. Okay, sorry. This first thing, all persons with any Negro blood classified as colored. One, we don't use those terms today, and we should not. Negro and colored to describe somebody, okay, of African descent, or okay, all right, or somebody that is African American. So that's not something we do. But I want you to. So they're basically saying here, anybody with any blood at all, okay, is classified as black. Okay, so they could have a white mom and a black father, or vice versa, or one grandma's white, but grandpa's black. But and at one point in history, they called it the one drop rule. One drop of blood, okay, of African American descent you would fall under these Jim Crow laws, and you would in a way be separated. Okay, so if I'm you, right, you come over here and simplify that. Okay, I'm gonna do a bullet point. I love bullet points, y'all. Simple. Okay. 5 words, 5 words or less. What would y'all put? What would y'all put in the chat? How would you summarize that first one in less than 5 words? Maybe one drop of blood. Okay, something like that. You can put what you think would be good. Okay, and we're gonna. I'm just trying to just simplify it here. Okay. All right, let's transition to the next bullet point, and then I'll get through this whole top section, and then I'll play the music, and then you get caught up. Okay. So mulatto, which we talked about before, right, with the Spanish hierarchy in Latin America, the social class system was like a mix of black and white. Okay, I know there's an artist, okay, that uses that term, but again, that's not a term that is appropriate. Okay, that is not a term that we use today to categorize or to label people that are in a way mixed with maybe again a black father and a white mother, or vice versa. Okay, but mulatto at this point, they made a law that said was legally any person of mixed blood descended from a father or mother from Negro ancestors to the 5th generation, depends on the state where this is inclusive, even though one ancestor of each generation may have been a white person. Okay, so even if you have a lot of white ancestors, you still be considered mulatto if you go back and there was a black ancestor. Okay, you would still be considered mulatto and fall under the Jim Crow era, fall under the laws of Jim Crow, and still be separated with the drinking fountains and everything else. Okay, that's going back to the 5th generation back. Okay, you had a lot of people that looked white that fell under this category. And a lot of times the NAACP would choose those people to make a statement to make it more apparent, like, look what you're doing. You're discriminating against, like, everybody in this situation. So anyways, mixed back 5 generations, right? So you would fall under the Jim Crow laws if even back 5 generations, there was any sort of Black ancestry. Okay. Questions? Put them in the chat. I don't know if we're doing this. I'm not sure how far we're going to get today. All right, let's look at this next one. Okay, because I'm taking my time on the first set. Okay, so here we go. Anti-Japanese American laws, middle column here. The Naturalization Act of 1790 was revised. Originally, the act was read to prohibit any Chinese immigrant from becoming an American citizen. In 1922, the Supreme Court interpreted the statute to prohibit the naturalization of any Oriental. And again, that's not terminology that we use today, okay? But, okay, naturalization is like becoming a citizen. So it's almost like if you're from kind of Asia in a way that you can't become a citizen. All right, there's my summary. Asian immigrant, no citizen. Okay. And let's look at the next one here. Talking about Jews in Germany. Okay. So first supplementary decree in the Reich citizenship law. This is in 1935. Okay. So they're defined first before they can discriminate against the Jews. They got to define who's a Jew and who's not. So here, a Jew is anyone with 3 Jewish grandparents or anyone with 2 Jewish grandparents who is married to a Jewish spouse or who belongs to the Jewish religion, either at the time the law is published or enters into such commitments later. All right, my goodness, this is complicated, right? I'm not exactly sure how we're going to limit that into five words or less. All right, 2 equals 3. 3 grandparents. I'll simplify it a little bit. Maybe we just say it like that. Or 2 and married. Maybe you got 2 grandparents, but then you're married to a Jew as well. My goodness. So let's say, all right, let's say for example, my goodness, it's confusing. But bottom line is, you got to define who's a Jew before you can hate them. That's what they're doing here, before you can make laws to discriminate against them. Right? Yeah. Yep. All right, I'm gonna play the music and then we'll move on soon. It is. I think that just goes to tell you how crazy it was, right? All right, next, okay? Now again, this video is available on Canvas or will be soon. Okay, yeah, all you're doing is summarizing text into 5 words. Make sure you get the main idea. You're trying to do no more than 5 words, okay? So let's look at education. I'll go a little bit quicker here for education, okay? Right, it's a little bit easier. Okay, education, first one. Separate schools required for different races. Okay, so right, schools separated by race. Right, the next one, no child of either race to be permitted to attend a school of the other race. That's kind of the same, in a way, the same thing. So basically, even if you wanted to, and you were white, you wanted to go to the school nearby, which was for African Americans, then you could not, or vice versa. Okay. All right. Then, no mixing in schools. Separate but equal facilities. Okay. Separate but equal. So basically, people started saying, hey, this isn't right. They say, yeah, but if we make the schools the same, make them equal and equal resources, then you can separate. Okay, even though that didn't happen. Okay, let's look at the middle one. May 1905, the San Francisco School Board of Education announced the policy of removing Japanese students to the one Oriental school so that our children should not be placed in any position where their youthful impressions may be affected by association with pupils of the Mongolian race. So basically, the white people are saying we don't want to be persuaded. We don't want our kids to interact with the kids from Asia, the Japanese kids. That's what they're saying. So if I'm somehow, that's what I'm doing here. Basically saying we're making this law and here's why we're doing it. Like, that's just straight up racist. All right. Then, okay. Then and Germany, let's look at how Germany was impacted and the Jews were impacted. Let's see. Something like that. White, separate from Asian. Okay. All right. Laws against the overcrowding of German schools, institutions of higher learning, limits the number of Jewish students in universities, bars students from taking state professional exams, declares Jewish students ineligible for reduced school fees and scholarships. Okay. Start to removing Jews from schools. And then all Jewish peoples expelled from German schools. All Jews removed. All right. Yep, I'm recording, so everything. So here's what you need to do for your asynchronous work. Asynchronous work. All right. Quite a few, but public accommodations, citizenship and voting rights, interracial, interfaith marriage. Those are the 3 that you need to complete before 10 p.m. Okay, before 10 p.m. If I'm you, I would just do that right now. Okay, I would do it right now. Okay, but I want you to do your best to simplify those bullet points into like less than 5 words. Any questions about that? Can y'all put that in the chat for me? Okay, again, any questions? Y'all put them in the chat. I want to make sure that I address anything that y'all need support with. So again, we got public accommodations, citizenship and voting rights, interracial, interfaith marriage. You got 3 more categories to go. Okay. Now, let's do the ticket out the door. Ticket out the door, please. Straightforward. Objective. What unit are we studying? Please get these right. Statement of inquiry and then asynchronous work.